Oh, it's very weird.
Well, have you never done an interview? You
No.
did magazine interviews, right?
Yes.
For when you caught your big fish.
Yeah, over the phone.
So it's way different than seeing in person. Having to look at some fucking idiot across from me.
That doesn't bug me. Hearing my voice on a voicemail or whatever was always like, oh man, I sound like an idiot.
Oh, trust me. I feel that way every time I listen to this fucking podcast. Today we have Greg Springer, right?
Yes.
Okay. Greg, I know who Greg is from my buddy Captain Negative, Daniel from Namiki. He's also buddies with him. And you're a big swimbait fisherman, right? Do you fish everything? Conventional too?
I fish conventional too. Just depending on the season, what's going on, but I'll fish conventional.
Will you fish a drop shot?
Hardly ever.
Really? But
Pretty
you
much
will.
never. Pretty much never.
Okay.
A spinning rod I own one. I've had the same one for probably 8 years. I don't know.
What kind is that?
It's a Shimano.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you grew up down San Diego way?
Yeah, grew up in Carlsbad. Lived in Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista all my life. Don't know much different.
What lakes were you fishing then when you were young?
Dixon was probably the one I went to all the time.
Really?
Mostly for trout fishing or, bluegill fishing or whatever. I didn't really get into bass fishing seriously. Probably 2006, 2007.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How old are you right now?
How old am I?
Yeah.
34.
Okay, so you're 22, 3 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just about. I bass fished as a kid at my grandparents. They lived in Solvang, and their neighbor.
I love Solvang, dude.
Yeah, their neighbor had a little pond in their backyard, and it was awesome. I mean, it was pretty silly.
Wide open all the time, huh?
Not all the time. The winter was obviously a little tough, but yeah, I'd get a neon green glow rooster tail and go to town, or like beetle spins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, game over all day long.
That's what got you addicted.
It really did. I mean, the first fish I caught was a rainbow trout at 3 years old, Convict Lake. And I just loved it ever since. It's all I remember.
Yeah. Wow. When you were 20, mid-20s, and you started seriously fishing, was it swimbait or everything?
It was everything, and it's pretty embarrassing to see where I started because, I mean, I didn't know anything about it. There was no internet. There was no one really to teach me how to bass fish or anything like that. But yeah, I just kind of did what I knew at the time.
Who was the guy that kind of introduced you to a lot of stuff?
I mean, I kind of had to learn on my own. I had a few friends after a while that I would learn from that really taught me a lot. My buddy Chris, who's like my brother, he really got me back into it. And then a couple buddies from work, we would go and have a good time. Golf course at night or whatever, hook people's hands when we're walking, all that good stuff.
Did you do the trick with the braid?
So I didn't know about that. And my friend Ben, I somehow hooked his hand. We were walking, and he put his hand right into my popper. And so that was interesting. And I get really queasy pretty easy, unless it's me. So he's sitting there with a pair of pliers, and he's like, oh, I can get this thing out. And he's going, "Arr!" and then pulling on the skin. And I was like, dude, I'm going to pass out. I can't do this. So we went to the emergency room and got it all taken care of. And yeah, I mean, lots of experiences that I've had. It was fun. It was just, we wanted to go fish.
Yeah. When did you, I guess the swimbait thing, when did that, you're kind of known for that a little, right?
Yeah, I guess more lately than in the beginning. My first swimbait fish was at a pond with my buddy Jeff on like a floating cast stick. It was only like a 4-pounder, but it was one of those things where it's like, well, we know there's a bunch of fish in here, so why not? That was my first one, but it took a while to get that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A lot of trial and error?
Lots of trial and error. Lots of HUDs at the bottom of the lake. And just learning in general, I wasn't that great at fishing conventionally yet. So picking up a swim bait was a little difficult.
Do you think that by skipping the learning curve on the conventional, that kind of pushed you back a little? You know what I'm saying? How I've talked to Gilbert, I've talked to dudes. Gilbert thinks don't need to learn conventional, you can go straight to swim bait. Some other dudes think, like, yeah, you gotta learn conventional first.
I don't think you 100% need it.
Okay.
Is it helpful? Sure.
Yeah.
I think it could be helpful.
Uh-huh.
As far as confidence goes, at least when you're fishing conventional, you can find fish a little easier because you're getting more bites, whether they're big or little, and you can use that to your advantage. But if you're going out and throwing a Cinco on a point and you find fish, but they're all 2-3 pounders, that's not going to help you with, locating a big fish necessarily.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that, that giant fish, I don't feel like it helps you a ton. It might help you get bites, but you don't need it.
What about when you learned how to throw? So you started dragging HUDs in the lake, wherever you were at. What gave you the idea to do that?
It was always what you heard of, throwing a HUD.
Were you getting this like at a tackle shop or something?
At the lake, a tackle shop. It was the floating Spro. That was one of my first purchases. 8-inch HUD. Those were the two that I really. Oh, and a punker. Obviously, you kind of have to have that one in your box, in your arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then fishing at the lake, the guys that were constantly getting bit and getting fish, all on HUD. And
you just had your head on a swivel, kind of going, "Hey, what are they doing?" Just to see what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're at the lake and
learn,
you're paying attention to the people that are there, and there was a guy that fished there all the time, and you could talk to him, and he was cool. He was never, rude about it, or yeah, I guess he was good with sharing information and telling you what worked. Anything from he let a HUD sit there for 5-10 minutes or whatever, and then start winding, and patience.
Little things like that. I mean, you didn't have internet.
No internet.
So that's the kind of thing where you're like, you go out and do the work, I guess. You're on, you know what I'm saying? You go out and not
do it
leaving
all
time
yourself.
on the water, but like paying attention to things around you.
Yes, you have to pay attention to, the water, the birds, just going and actually doing it versus looking around online at what someone else is doing or, anything like that. The best thing you can do for yourself is spend quality time on the water.
When do you think it started to click for you? So like, when were you throwing the HUD and you're kind of like, oh, I get it. And you started going, I can actually search for these fish.
I was actually super discouraged fishing. So Wolford was where I spent most of my time doing all this stuff. And the first day I got a swimbait fish there, I got a 6.5 on a square bill, and I was like, this is great. Okay, I'm going to throw the HUD. And I got a 3-pounder. And it's like, this is stupid. That's not how this is supposed to work. So I got super frustrated, and then losing a $30 bait at least once a trip. If you're shore pounding, I mean, that place is hungry for a swim bait. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3. I would go up there with 2 or 3 of them and then leave if I lost them. Sometimes it would be an hour. Sometimes I wouldn't lose any. But if you're not getting stuck, you're not getting bit.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And you learned that as you started to lose them, you're going.
Yeah.
Did you have times where you're like, well, maybe if I just go a little faster and just touch the bottom?
And it didn't work for me. It did not work for me. But that's just that particular lake for me. Now, the guy that was helpful to me, Mike, Coastal, I want to say was his last name. I'm not 100% sure. Mm-hmm. That guy smoked him. I mean, I was fishing one of the points one day with a HUD for I'd say about 45 minutes. Walk down the bank about 100 yards. He comes up behind me and sticks a 12.
In the same spot.
Same spot, same bait, and it's just like, all right, well, clearly I'm doing something wrong.
Did you go up to him and go, hey, man?
Oh, no. No. He had the ranger come get him, weigh it and everything, all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was that the record at the time, 12?
No, there's records from, I believe, mid 80s. And I'm terrible for not knowing this. I want to say it's in the 18 or 19 pound range. Yeah.
So you think that little lake could potentially, like, could have held a record?
At one point in time, I think it could have.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for that. It's not a big lake.
It's not a big lake, but that's also, for the most part, it can be helpful. There's a lot less water to cover, but those fish are also a lot smarter.
Yeah. Right.
You know, people always joke it's fishing in a fishbowl in Southern California. And it is. Like, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
You know, there are, you know, potential giant fish in the waters we have, and there's also 100 people that show up.
So I guess the big, for you, this is like a great story, is you caught a big fish out of there, right? Kind of big, right?
It was kind of big, yeah.
You caught 2 that day or 1?
Just one. Yeah, 16.3. One fish, and after that, I left.
You were just like...
Yeah, after that whole thing was over with. So I guess it all started so I caught that fish on a Friday. The Friday before that, I took my friend Chris, my best friend, up there because he wanted to catch a swimbait fish. I wanted to kind of show him, okay, this is what you can and can't do. Or, I mean, you can do anything you want, but...
You're giving them the boundaries of, like, what you think.
Yes.
Okay.
Teaching him what I knew. And I lined him up on a cast, and he made a good cast, hooked a good one, and then lost it. And it's like, you know, cool that he got bit, but bummer that he lost it. It's like, all right, well, next time maybe try this instead of that, you know.
What kind of bait were you using at the time?
He was throwing a HUD.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, well, let's go to a different spot. Go over there. He's throwing the HUD. I'm throwing the HUD. And out in pretty much the middle of the mud, I had 3 fish follow it, which I thought were like a 12 and 2 10s. And I was like, oh, shit. And one was bright blue. It just has a hue on the back that, you know, it's pretty easy to see.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that was a big fish. Fire back out there and nothing. So fast forward 6 more days. The Thursday before I went up there after work.
Did you keep track of that spot?
Oh, yeah.
In your head, and like you're like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But that was all from a boat, too. So
okay.
I went back Thursday, or 6 days later, and I was throwing a punker. Had a big shadow behind my bait. The sun was in my eyes. I couldn't really see what it was. Chased it all the way up to the bank, and then swirled and took off.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, all right, well, that could have been one of those 3 fish.
Yeah, yeah.
Never know. Fire back out there. And, well, not with the punker. So fishing straight braid with the punker. Cut that off. Put on that kokanee glide. And then worked it like a punker. So super fast.
Depth?
No, it's a glide bait. It was
Who's it made by?
316.
Okay.
It was a prototype that Mickey sent me, the kokanee glide, and I was just working that thing super fast. I figured if I could get a reaction out of that fish, it might actually commit. Followed it up aggressively, and then took off again. Couple more casts and nothing. I was like, dude, I blew it. Like, that was my chance. And then the next day, I was supposed to go fishing with Ryan at Skinner. I had just got a 12 there like 3 weeks before, and he was getting fish, so it was doing some damage at the time.
And this was on the same bait?
This was a different bait.
Okay.
And so we ended up not going. I think he canceled or didn't want to go or something like that. And I was all bummed out. And so I just took care of some stuff. And then I was like, that's it. I'm just going to go to the lake. And it was glass calm. And I was like, well, this looks terrible. Go to that spot and pretty much nothing. It looked dead, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go work my way down towards the other end of the lake. Started working my way down there. and that wind came up, and I knew that was my opportunity. That first little bit of
Did
wind.
you run as fast as you came back to the...
No, I mean, you can't really run there. It's all like
Yeah.
rock and terrible.
Yeah.
But I got there pretty quick. And then first cast with that kokanee glide, I wasn't fishing braid because I knew exactly, that fish was around there. I had the potential. So fishing on fluoro, first cast.
So you're fishing fluoro?
Yeah.
Really?
Fishing fluoro as fast as I
How
could.
How heavy?
20.
What kind, if you don't mind me asking?
A Braze X Seagar.
Okay.
I love that stuff. It's great to me. Some people don't like it, but
Yeah. No, I've heard. I mean, I've heard a lot of Butch uses it. A lot of dudes do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I used to fish mono forever because I thought it was not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I switched to fluoro, and it's a game changer, definitely.
Yeah.
That Abrase X is great. I mean, I got that 12. I probably had 6 feet of curly cued line, and I don't know how it got in the net, but it got in the net. So it works, even if it's a little messed up. But yeah,
A real quick question: do you change that out frequently?
during the big fish months, we'll call it, the winter
Yeah.
months, spring months, every few trips.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, you're dropping some money on fucking fluoro, bro.
I mean, could be the next world record, right?
Right. That's a
Can
way
you-
to think about it.
I mean, if you think about it, people are paying $400 or $500,
For a bait?
for a bait that you could cast off.
Yeah.
I can buy that spool, and Tackle Warehouse has them all the time. I could
Like
buy that
1,000?
spool for 1,000 yards, spool up, 9 times easily
That's what going to
for
cost you.
for $140 or whatever it is. That's nothing.
Yeah, it's like $20 a time or $30 a
Yeah,
time.
it's nothing.
Yeah, I guess it's worth it if you catch that fish. So that's maybe a big part that people don't think about is respooling every time, because it's like if you're gonna make sure your knot's tight every time, you got to make sure every other trip or every couple trips you're gonna have a new line.
Well, and especially if you're bottom bouncing or dragging through trees, like Diamond Valley has a ton of trees, any sharp rock, just because the first 2 feet of your line isn't chewed up doesn't mean, 10 feet up isn't.
Yeah.
So,
Do you pull off 10 feet every once in a while just to?
So I retie pretty often, but after I'm done fishing or whatever, I just loop the line on the reel, and then the next time I go out, I peel off that 8 feet at least, and then like another 1 or 2 pulls, and then it's good. That's why I have to. That's why you have to re-spool every 3, 4, 5 trips.
Yeah. Yeah, I love hearing little things like that. But go back to your story where you saw a little bit of water movement. And
Yeah. So went back to that area, that kokanee glide. The day before, I got it to react pretty good to a quick back and forth, not like a soft bait or anything like that. First cast, twitching it as hard as I could, as fast as I could, and that thing blew up on it, and it was the craziest thing I ever seen. And I was pretty surprised. I wasn't really expecting it.
there's you do have big catfish in there?
Yes, I've caught a 20-pound catfish on a jig out of that place, and I thought I had the one. But I mean, I knew that was a bass for sure, just how it reacted. Got it to the bank, and it's just kind of shallow sand area that I was fishing, and got it up on the bank, and I was freaking out a little bit. At first I thought it was 12-ish, maybe 13 or whatever. I didn't know exactly how big it was.
Did you have a scale with you?
So I had a scale. I had a GoPro in my backpack. I also, when I shore pound, I carry a live well bag with me.
What is that?
So just like what pros use,
Like
or anyone
to dip water in there and to keep them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you want to make sure that fish is preserved and it's taken care of. So shallow, muddy area, and it's freezing cold, and I'm like, how am I going to fill this thing up with water? So I've got the fish flopping on the bank, which I absolutely hated. Trying to fill this live well bag up with water. I finally get enough in there, get the fish in there, but I'm on the other side of the lake. So I had to Google the number for Lake Wolford, call them and say, hey, you need to pick me up over here. I'm the only person here. And they're like, I can't see you. I don't know where you're at. Like, I'm literally the only person here. Waving my hands to, like, look directly across the lake. So then 2 guys that were trout fishing ended up trolling right in front of me. I'm like, hey, do you guys mind, like, taking me over?
Were you that calm?
No. Not at
You're
all.
like, listen here, fuckers. I need to get the fuck back to the dock.
And they're like, oh, you caught a big fish. And then at that time, the ranger actually saw me, so he came and picked me up. He's like, oh, I heard you got a good fish. I was like, yeah, I think, it's 12 or 13. He's like, oh, really? Where is it? I was all, it's in here. And I showed him. He's like, yeah, that's a big one. I mean, that thing was folded in half in a live well bag. Fuck, dude. Which, like I said, there's certain things it's like, I probably shouldn't have done that, but it's better than, the other options, I guess.
Which people do. You know what
people
I'm saying?
do.
Like,
I mean, I know people that have tied them on a string, a shoelace, and walked them all the way, or like, you'll do whatever you can, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's your right, number one, as a fisherman to pay for, so I wouldn't do it, but if someone did, and number two, if I caught, like what Butch said, if I caught fucking a 22-pound largemouth, I'd kill that motherfucker and put it on ice so everyone could see it. Oh. It's like if you thought you might have had the record.
I didn't think it was that big.
But it was a big.
I knew it was a big fish.
You caught a 12-pounder before that.
I knew it was going to be my PB. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I had documentation of it. I had a decent picture. I'm sure I could have set up my GoPro on a rock and taken.
Too bad you photoshopped the picture.
Oh, I know, right? I know. There's a difference between a filter and photoshopping. We'll just say that.
So you get the Ranger.
So I get it over there, pull it out of the bag. They weigh it, and I was absolutely shocked at the weight. Like I said, I thought it was going to be 12, maybe 13. So when it came out at 16.3, I was kind of freaking out. Super stoked. And it was just kind of surreal. This place that I kind of cut my teeth at for a while and kind of gave up on.
This was a random day you just came back?
Yes. Just
you hadn't been fishing there for a while?
Those 2 days, the week or the day before and the week before, other than that, I don't think I think I might have fished it 1 or 2 more times that season, and that was it.
Wow.
But if you know where they're at, you know where they're at. You have
but
high
did you know
percentage
that
areas.
spot? You knew the spot, though. That was the thing. You knew you were going to fish that spot.
And it wasn't a spot that anyone would really think to pay attention to. There's a few places there that are, people fish all the time. People fish all the time. So those secondary spots, people always talk about the spot on the spot. Mm-hmm. Well, this was kind of the spot off of the spot. Didn't get much pressure, and I knew fish were there. I knew 3 were there, and I definitely knew 1 was there. So that all goes back to the whole quality time on the water versus just time on the water. I could have wrote that off. Oh, I got 3 follows here. Okay, whatever. Off to the next place.
Are you taking notes?
Not as
mentally?
Mentally, mostly.
Did you used to take notes?
No.
Never?
That's probably something I should do.
It seems like everyone that fishes big baits, they have a very good memory for taking notes like that, because I'm like, dude, I won't fucking remember some shit.
Well, pictures help too. Now you have pictures in your phone that tell you the time. If you want to geotag your pictures, you can, exactly where that is. But
exactly.
Fish that are, good or, any kind of size, they're memorable. You're going to remember how that happened, whether you write it down or not.
Yeah.
Maybe if you write it down, the exact angle. You're going to know the temperature of the water, temperature of the air.
True, because I remember when I caught my last bigger swimbait fish, a couple like the shadows or the, whatever it might be. I was like, okay. And I'm going to remember that. And I did it again. Like, I'm like, oh, punker fishing, I'm like, oh, there's kind of a cove where there's a shadow right there. Okay. And it worked,
Shade lines, hard cover versus the soft cover, mud lines, anything like that. A little bit of current you get. We obviously don't get too much current down here. but wind will create that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So those little subtle things that you can kind of take a mental note of, just wind direction. If you know that the wind is going to blow a certain direction, like fishing Diamond Valley, I guess that helped me the most. Wind blows from all different directions there. And when it says there's east wind, there's no wind at all. So there's certain spots that I have for when it's, kind of a more of a northern wind or northwest wind or like a south wind. It lets you set up on a spot differently and get that right angle. And it helps me. It may not help a lot of people, but I know that I can pull up on a spot and say, okay, when the wind is coming from this direction, the fish are typically going to be on this cast. I might make one deep cast and one shallow cast, and if I don't see anything, if I don't get any response, no bites, then I'm done. I don't like beating up spots. I'm very particular about that.
How many casts? You only do a couple casts on a spot and just move on?
Yes.
Most of the time?
Most of the time. I'd say shallow, middle, deep is about all you really need to do.
As long as you know what you're looking at, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The last thing I want to do is pound a spot to death. Big fish are big for a reason. They're very smart. They are in tune to what's around them. So when you hear this giant splash, every 30, 40 seconds, they're going to be onto you. But if you can get a couple quiet casts in, way past the zone, then you have a better chance.
How long do you think a reset time is for a fish to not make him accustomed to hearing that splash? You know what I'm saying? So say you hit a spot. Can you come back that same day, or you won't even come back for a couple?
Oh, you can definitely come back the same day. I typically will wait an hour or two, depending. That's probably the least amount of time I would give it. But it depends on how many spots you have. If you only have 3 spots, they're a high percentage. That's hard to do. It's hard to fill your day, either burning a bank or looking for other stuff. But really, a graph can come in handy for that. It kills time, side scan, all that stuff. It's really a good tool to have. There's plenty of stuff that I've fished Skinner for, 6, 7, 8 years probably, maybe even longer, and I still find new stuff
with that side scan stuff.
With side scan,
you're like, man, it's like a whole another world of fishing.
It is, and even it helps you find bait, all that stuff. So if you can fill your day with not necessarily fishing, but you're absorbing other information about the place, then that's going to help you too. Not everything I find holds fish.
Yeah.
But if I'm finding a spot that maybe only 1 or 2 other people know about, and if they don't throw a swim bait at it, it's even better.
What happened after you caught that 16 at Wilford? You know what I'm saying? I'm blowing up the lake, stuff like that, because you don't get to hear much, and you're a local there, so you kind of know what's going on. Did you get 100 people there the next day? Did you get, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I wouldn't call myself a local there. There's a couple guys that fish it all the time. They live right down the street.
Okay.
Really cool guys. But I had weighed that fish, let it go at the dock. I only told 2 or 3 people about it. I told Ryan, I told Gilbert, and I told my wife. And that was it. And I had people calling me, texting me that I never contacted. People showing up at the lake, throwing all out of the woodwork.
Do you think people found out from at the lake? Whoever's at the lake saw you. How many people were at the lake that day?
I mean, quite a few.
Yeah, I mean,
but there's a lot of trout fishermen there, more than guys fishing for bass or whatever that time of year. I'm not sure who leaked it or how it got
Ryan.
out.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I mean, it was almost immediate.
No, that's just. I mean, it's not who leaked it. It's more of like the response of what happens after you catch a big fish like that.
I mean, it's definitely cool.
Did you get people reaching out to you and shit all the time and going, hey?
I did. It was more like a congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
awesome.
I mean,
fish is cool. Like, I was still trying to process that whole situation. It was pretty surreal. That's a fish that I've only seen one that big in front of me one other time because of Ryan. You don't see fish like that every day.
what did Ryan catch at Skinner?
16-2
But you beat him, right?
by 0.1. Still counts.
We could talk about Ryan since he'll never come on the fucking podcast.
Well, I heard you're going to do a hunting podcast,
I might,
right?
just to get him to come on. Fucking guy.
Yeah.
But, you were there when he caught the 16.
I netted that thing, and that was probably the scariest thing I have ever had to do.
You know what's even scarier? Netting a fish like that for somebody, because if you lose that, it's your fucking fault.
Well, he hooked that fish earlier, and
Did you lose it?
No, I did not lose it. It broke the bait in half probably 2 feet from the net and just swam, like, cruised right back. And it's like, sure, I could have jumped in, froze myself to death and probably missed it,
Did he tell you to jump in?
No.
No, he was just like...
I mean, we were both freaking out. You don't see fish that big all the time.
No.
And to see it coming at you, you're like, this is it. Like, you've got one shot.
He holds the record, right?
No, they didn't. Oh, for me personally, it's the record. It's the biggest fish that I know that's been caught there.
What's the record at Skinner right now?
I think it's 14-4.
Who holds that?
Chip Gilbert.
Oh, he does?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But blocks you couldn't, I heard, because of the way he was fishing or something, or where he was fishing.
Yeah, it was in a place you can't fish, apparently.
Okay.
Even though you can fish it, you still can't fish it.
You think there's politics to that one?
Well, there's always politics. Always.
I mean, but he's known to have, that's the biggest bass
Yes.
you heard come out of
Yes.
Skinner.
Yeah. I mean, you can only go 10 miles an hour there, so if you go 12
Really?
miles an hour or 15 miles,
fucking...
but are they DQ'd if they get the record?
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, that happens, I guess, with a lot of the same thing with the salt. When people put up spotties, where'd you get it? It was off limits. You jumped a fish, you fenced and got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that really that great of a fish if no one can fish there? People will debate that. I think if you could get a fucking line in the water and is what it is, I mean, and it's so loosely,
Yeah, but then seeing how it played out for him, which, was pretty unfortunate, it just makes you want to go get the record legitimately. It's attainable, in certain places.
Do you still think you have that quality at Skinner right now?
Hard to tell.
Really?
Hard to tell. That place has really good genes. The
Are you
fish
still
there have
catching
really
big
good
ones there?
genes.
How about that?
Am I? No.
Not right now?
Not right now. No, I've been having a tough year.
Do you think everybody's been having a tough year? You're like, a couple guys that fucking had a great year.
Yeah, I know some people that are having a really hard time, and some people are doing pretty good. If you can put your time on the water and, do
You're
it the right
fishing 2
way.
days a week, whatever lake it might be, right?
1 day a week.
1 day a week?
Yeah.
One Fridays for the wife?
A Wednesday or a Friday, I'm there.
And then other days for the wife, huh?
Yeah. Have to do that.
Yeah.
Have to do that.
I get it.
I mean, fishing will always be there, and I'm thankful that my wife lets me do as much as I do with talking to people. It's not just, okay, I'm going fishing or whatever, but, okay, I want to go do a podcast. All right, well.
Now, here's a question. Does this burn your fishing day? No.
No and yes.
See, that's what happened to me with the podcast. So you think I was fishing 2 or 3 times a week. So I'd be gone like in the morning. I go fish half a day in the morning, come back. Now it's like, I got a podcast today. And I got one tomorrow. And I got the charter. So it's like, to my wife, I go, well, can I go fish? Well, I just burnt fucking,
Yeah. I mean, I can still fish. I get off early enough. It's just I'm choosy about my fishing. I want to go in the boat or whatever. It's like, do I need it? No. My personal best is from the friggin' bank. I don't need to go out
So
on the
that's
boat.
another question I have for you is, you've caught a 12 from a boat, right?
Yes.
Okay. What was it, the difference catching a big fish like that from the bank compared to the boat? Like, what are you worrying about? What were you, like, thinking?
In the boat, it is an experience that you can actually enjoy in the moment because, you have it.
You know it's going to come to you.
You don't know it's going to come to you, but once it's in the boat, you can put it in the box and you can like fully, take in all that moment and, be happy, be stoked, be pumped. You can take pictures, let it go, whatever you want to do. From the bank, it was super stressful. Like I'm saying, I had to fill up that live well bag while it's flopping in the mud and, just the preservation of that thing I was not proud of, what I had to do.
You're big on conservation then for the bass.
For giant fish like that, of course, they're older, they're fragile, and that's their time. They don't surrender themselves too often. The last thing I wanted was to hear, oh, there's a floating 16 at the lake 2 days later or whatever.
Did you watch it swim away?
Oh yeah, I have the video of it swimming away.
Did anyone else catch that fish yet?
Yes.
Really?
From what I know, it's been caught twice, but it was not that big.
Oh, you got it at the right time.
From what I've seen, she was kind of at the end of her life cycle. The other time she was caught, I believe she was 14.
Okay.
And then I want to say 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A lot smaller.
Definitely. And then she looked a little sick too.
Ready to go.
Yeah, desperate for a meal. A fish like that doesn't get caught ever, and then all of a sudden, I think it was in like an 18-month span, it got caught 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Same thing you're using?
No. I don't know what they caught
No. All right.
that on after me, but yeah, I mean, it's still a beautiful fish.
So you think the shore is a more stressful deal all the way because
Definitely.
You don't get to enjoy it. You got to go, shit, where am I going to go now?
Yeah, it was like an hour process of,
making sure she's not dead, making sure she's breathing,
yeah. And then it's like I had people call me, dude, you should have told me. You should have told me. I would have gone up there. We could have taken pictures, blah, blah. And it's like, I can't do that. Like, I could not live with myself. I could not sleep at night knowing if I had hurt that fish, killed it. Because at the time, Gilbert was actually doing a contest for the biggest fish on his measuring board, won a hinkle.
Oh, did you win that one?
No, I didn't have a board on me.
Oh, fuck.
Shore pounding, And I'm not sure if the travel board was out yet. And if it was, I was probably just like, oh, I don't need it. I have the other one. Why do I need that? Well, I needed it. So I didn't get my hinkle trout, but I think Joe is the one. He had like a 13 on the board.
Shit.
But I think that would have been the biggest one on the board.
Oh,
even to date, yeah.
Is that the biggest is what? He's had on the board 13, you think?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
Wow. What are some rods you use? How about that? People want to know what kind of rod you might use.
I have Mark Nefflis from Neff Customs. He wraps my rods. Super cool guy. I don't need anything fancy. I just like black wraps. I know the guides I like, and he helps me out. A lot of R&D goes into all the rods that he makes. A lot of Phoenix blanks. He's wrapped a couple Phoenixes for me.
You know which ones you like to use, or you're not sure?
So I have an 800 heavy that I want to say is the hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the hybrid that he wrapped for me a while ago, and that rod is excellent for like a heavy soft bait, a mag, the 9-inch battle shad.
Okay.
And that's what I primarily throw on that. I've thrown the depths on it. It does okay for a hard bait, but I would like something a little more parabolic. But if I'm in a pinch, I'll use that one for sure. And then on the 12 I got at Skinner was, I think it was a 909 heavy, and that was chopped to 8.8.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
8.8 or 8.6, something like that. Yeah, but those are the two.
Those are your two go-to rods you usually use?
Yes.
Okay. When you go out, are you just throwing swim baits most of the time now? Or you throw jigs, throw everything?
I love throwing the swim bait, but when the time comes for a frog or a punch, it's so hard for me to put those down. I love that kind of fishing. It's in a way, you can get big bites on that, and it's still heavy line. I'm not fishing a spinning rod. Nothing against it. It's just, it's not for me. I have no control with a spinning rod whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the guys that can land giant fish on spinning rod, my hat is off to you. I just have no control.
Would you be as satisfied with a jig fish that big? You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? You don't care if it was a swim bait or a jig fish.
I do not care.
You just want to have the big fish.
Yeah. My first double digit was on a crankbait, and it was the coolest thing ever.
What lake was that?
It was great. At El Cap, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
How big was that?
10.4.
Wow.
And it's skinny, skanky. It had like a golf ball size, like tumor looking thing on the side of its face.
Wow.
But it horked the crankbait. It was gone.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. Like, I had never seen one that big in person, and to figure out that I could actually do it was pretty cool.
What about do you think you have to throw the swim bait to catch a big fish?
No.
I've
caught plenty of 2, 3, 4, 5 pounders on a swim bait.
Uh-huh.
And then, pick up a frog and catch an 8.
Yeah.
So
you're not like dedicated to your, like, you'll change up if you have to.
I will.
Some guys are just like, hey, I'm going to have my 5 swim bait rods on here and that's all I'm throwing.
I mean, certain months, that's all I'm going to be throwing. But I still love fishing. A jig actually taught me a lot about how to fish a soft bait.
Really?
Yes.
Just the dragging on the floor?
Dragging, really knowing what's down there without having to go up to the spot and graph it. I fished Diamond Valley tournaments with my buddy Brian for a while. And, Carolina rig and jig were kind of our go-to. And that really helped me figure out how far I've got to cast past the spot to make sure that it's at the right angle when it goes over the rock or the right area of the rock. Diamond Valley, I forget who coined this one. Those fish love rock, and with a swim bait, if you fish one shallow, they love what's called a murder rock. It's just one particular style of rock where it's like you can go down a bank and throw, a hut or whatever, super shallow and fish it fast. But you can come around a corner and be like, oh, there's going to be a fish there for sure. Mm-hmm. And they will blast it on those murder rocks. So it's not necessarily, dragging it straight out or whatever.
So murder rock's just like a certain texture or the look of the rock where you're like...
It almost makes like a little bit of a point on like a bank that has pretty much nothing.
Okay.
It might be a rocky bank or a sandy bank, but this one rock that could be 2 or 3 feet is just a little bit bigger and either sitting in that shade or,
And you're going to burn it over that?
I'm going to bring it right to it. So cast past it and then try to basically hit the tip of it with the bait. And they'll usually, if they're sitting out deep, they'll come up and blast it. If they're sitting up shallow, it just kind of gets sucked down.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's how many times you think that percentage rate that happens?
No, it doesn't happen as much as you would want it to, that's for sure. Because you would say, oh, it's going to happen there, and it doesn't. But there's
a high probability you're going to get a bit on one of those rocks.
Yes.
Okay. So you think Carolina rig and I don't think I fished it once or twice, Carolina rig. Are you big on that?
It's boring.
Just slow.
So boring.
Yeah. But that taught you how to get those HUD bites.
It taught me that I need to be, like I said, if you're not getting stuck, you're not catching fish. Lots of jigs in the bottom of Diamond Valley. But then you also know what you can get away with there. You know what cast to make. You can make that cast with a jig and be like, it's stuck. It's stuck or bit. One of the two.
Yeah.
There's like narrow margins where you can drag that thing through and not get stuck, not blow up the spot. So it's helpful, especially when you have, a $4 jig versus a, $100 swim bait or whatever it is.
Now, do you still, when you're going so slow, are you using a certain reel that you like to use or a couple reels you like to use?
So For the slow, I definitely like, my favorite is the Calcutta 300 TE. One of my favorites, just a workhorse. I can do pretty much anything with it. If I had one reel to choose, it would be that one for any kind of swim baits. The 400, it's a little big for me. Still a great option. And then recently, in the past couple years, the Abu Revo Beast 40.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I think you're one of the first people to ever say that. I fucking hate those things, but
I don't know
I use
why.
it for salt.
Oh, okay.
Because those clutches go out. Once to
See,
me,
I've fished the 60, the 50, and the 40. I fished the 60 in saltwater, and I've had it for 5 years.
so the 60, I've had the 60 for 3 years. I like it. I still have that.
Mm-hmm.
The 50s, I think, I don't like.
Oh, see, I've had
You like
no
the 50?
issues.
Really?
I love that when I click that thing into free spool, it's solid. Like, it feels solid. Casts a mile, easy to get how you want it. And same with the 40, casts a mile. I actually let Daniel use one of mine.
Do you break it?
He backlashed that thing so bad.
Of course he would. He'd be like, dude, why did you leave it like that, bro?
Yeah.
That's what he said to you. Why did you fuck this up, bro?
Why is the thing so loose?
Exactly. It's not your fault. It's not his fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, but that for that Revo 40 for the smaller baits or like a wake bait or anything like that, it's great. Like I said, cast a mile,
Yeah.
workhorse, and I've kind of been going back and forth trying to figure out what one I like the most, and I always go back to that 300 TE.
Have you checked out the Fathoms yet? The new Penn Fathoms?
No, I haven't.
So I think they're pretty much the same thing as the Abu. They don't make those Abus anymore. The inshores they don't make.
Mm-hmm.
So they're Fathoms, and I heard they changed a little bit on them. So
Yeah, I'd have to take a look.
yeah, me too. I really liked the Abus.
Because I know Matt Florentino,
Yeah.
they fish all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like they fish hard, they fish in the salt. So
Yeah,
they have
Decker and all those guys, Linus Fine, all those guys fish it, and they beat them up.
Yeah.
So I mean, Decker did a lot of R&D on it, so it's kind of cool. But if you could pick, what 3 baits are you going to use when you say you're going to go to DVO? So you're going to throw swim baits. What 3 baits do you like to use?
What time of year?
Let's say right now.
Right now, definitely have to have some kind of soft bait. I would probably go with Baitsmith Mag, or Hog Hunter now, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or a HUD. I would take a glide bait, whether it be a Depths, a DDT, just a bigger profile trout bait that is a glide. The fish at Diamond are a little different. They love a big bait, and they're very smart. They know how to eat a bait without getting hooked. And then the third bait would probably be a weedless, like 9.0 battle shad, anything like that, so you can get it down into the trees. I was fortunate enough to have Gilbert send me a couple prototypes of the head case harness.
How big of a game changer was that?
Huge.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely huge. Being able to go from casting my mag in 40 feet into, a plethora of trees and just praying to God you don't get stuck, to being able to throw a bait like that and not even have to worry it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lost 0 there.
Really? With that
0.
head case harness?
Yeah.
Wow. What size beast hooks are you using on those?
For the 9.0, it's a 12-aught.
12-aught?
Yes. I think they only come in 3/4.
Really?
But what I was doing, the 3/4 would sink a little faster than I wanted. I pulled this trick from, I believe it was Saltwater guys that actually started it, taking the bare bones 12-aught hook and getting rubber core sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that rubber core out, open it up, pop it on the shank of that hook, clamp it down and glue it, and you can have any weight you want on there.
Yeah.
So I was experimenting with 3/8, half ounce, anything like that. I always ended up going back to the 3/4. But
You think the weight plays a little bit of an issue when you're trying to fish that thing? Like seeing the weight?
for the most part, I don't think so, because they still don't see a hook that much.
Okay.
It's all dependent. If you're dragging it on the bottom, of course it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
If you're trying to fish it slow over their heads, yeah, they might see it, but they also don't have a hook to look at underneath. You can also color those weights. You can do whatever you need to do to get it to disguise into the bait a little better.
Yeah.
But even just go buy a whole bunch of Sharpies, and if you have
Go to town.
yeah, if you have a black bait that you're fishing up against, that silver weight is not what you want, Sharpie it.
Yeah.
You know, it'll come off eventually, so Sharpie it again. If you don't like it, just fish it. It'll come right off.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
What about a boat? What kind of boat do you have?
I used to have an R81 Ranger, which is Ryan's old boat, but we just ended up swapping. I moved, had a smaller space, so now I have a 17-foot Ranger, which is plenty for around here.
Do you fish tournaments with that?
I haven't fished a tournament in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, I liked it in the beginning, but it's not for me.
No.
The night tournaments I'll fish every once in a while because those are fun, just because you can't really
fish at night.
Yeah, you can't fit
The
night fish
DVL
around
night
here.
tournaments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are fun until there's 120 boats on them. And then
Really? They get that many?
for some of the last chance customer appreciation boat tournaments, there's a lot of people.
Damn, dude. That's a lot. But I'm sure it's fun. You're just sitting there throwing swim baits probably or something, right?
I mean, ironically, we actually get more fish on smaller baits
Really?
at night. I mean, I'll fish the shit out of a rat all night long
Yeah.
and get some good fish. But a jig there at night has always been one of the better baits for me.
When you're throwing a jig at DVL, what kind of line you like using?
16-pound. I was using Sniper at the time. Got a couple bad batches. So I kind of stopped using that, just breaking on hook sets and a little brittle. So it's 17 Abrazex now.
So and then the two lakes that you really like are Skinner and DVL.
Those are the two that I fish the most, definitely.
Do you think what do you think the best lake in Socal is for you? Those two?
Size or quantity. It just depends on what you want to do,
Well,
really.
what are you trying to do? What do you what's the end goal? Size? You're looking for the big one?
The end goal
still?
is size.
Then which lake do you think is going to produce that size?
You know, for a couple years, I dedicated my time to Diamond because I know that place has potential. I've seen them. There are big fish in there. They're just very smart. Very, very smart. To the point where they will come up to your bait and push water at it with their mouth to see if it's real or whatever. It's
No
like,
way.
yeah.
Shit.
They'll come at it from the side and push it with their nose, closed mouth and everything, just to see. It's
Dude, that's
it's wild.
Yeah.
Skinner has good genes. Diamond Valley, they're usually longer, skinnier, different kind of fish, but I know it has them.
Yeah. So you think it's going to come out of there if you get something bigger?
I think with the amount of people that fish it and people that don't just dedicate their time to a swim bait there, just the regular conventional guys that really know that place, there's a shot there for sure.
Because the record's on Curry's, right?
Yes.
And that's 14?
It's the 14 something.
That's on
yeah.
Drop Shot?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and even the the one past that was 15 that didn't count. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's opportunity there for sure. They get trout all the time, throughout the winter, consistently. There's tons of bluegill in there. There's tons of baby bass.
Yeah.
There's a lot of forage for those fish, but they have depth there, and it's a bigger lake for
You think
around
that
here.
plays a lot? The depth helps a lot? They can hide?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's why you think you're going to get a bigger fish out of there because they have the depth. Well, Skinner's what, 40?
I think the deepest part I know is like 65,
Okay.
70.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the water level.
What about Paris? You don't really go to Paris?
I've fished Paris a couple times. They haven't been getting trout, so that's another one of those key elements,
Yeah.
Not to say that it can't happen there. there's a lot of good fish in there for sure.
Yeah.
It seems like it's on the upswing, with the water coming up, and they were able to put some structure in there to give, fish a place to hide and fishermen a place to find them.
Well, fuck, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, definitely.
You kind of broke down everything for us. I appreciate it. You have anything to plug?
Just
sponsors, bro.
Are you sponsorships? Gilbert, I've known him for a long time, working class zero. Just a good dude. We fish the same water at certain times, and you never get a bad vibe from him or whatever. Just a good dude, a good friend.
Uh-huh.
Paul with Piz, like I said, another good dude.
Yeah.
Funny guy. He should fish more, but
hold on really quick. We're right by the fucking airport, and apparently there's a fucking UFO coming over our head loud as fuck. Shit, dude. How the fuck did that end? I'm recording on a fucking card. Motherfucker. I swear, dude, I initialized the card. Well, hopefully it was just the last.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so Paul, good dude, just needs to fish more. Daniel from Demiki, super cool guy. Just a good person to be around.
He'll keep you honest.
Keep you very honest. He'll let you fish out of his boat while he sleeps in the back seat.
He's good at that.
Yeah, good dude. Mark from Neff Customs, even before, in the beginning, when I first found his page, just a really cool guy. Seeing that, he was going down to the park lakes and catching fish and handing them off to kids, that's
cool.
A cool thing.
Yeah.
You don't see a ton of that, nowadays. So super cool. Yeah, and I'm sure there's people I'm forgetting. I apologize. But, that's
about it. Well, thanks for sharing your story, dude. It's pretty cool. And I've been trying to get you on for a minute. So it's cool for you to drive up here and take your time, bro.
Yeah, finally lined up.
You bet. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.